Hi, yes, it's Harriet here, and I'm just making this video just to talk about my experience with subjective reality and busting loose from the money game. Because I read this book maybe 6 months ago, and I decided that I agreed with what he was arguing against, but I couldn't accept the fact that, all there was my consciousness. Anyway, I've been having some challenges lately, and I kind of came back to it, because although originally I hadn't felt I could agree with it all, it did sort of help me out, and so I seemed to manifest some quite good things after I'd read it originally. So I've sort of come back to it, and about a week ago I decided I was going to do a belief trial, and I basically borrowed this idea of belief trial from Steve Pavlina, who talks about behaviour trials. So if you want to give up smoking or overeating or eating something you crave, you say to yourself, oh, I'm just going to do it for 30 days or 10 days or an hour, depending how bad your craving is. And they've worked really well for me. And what I found with some of these ideas, such as subjective reality and you are creating your entire world and none of it exists in its own right, is that I couldn't quite accept them, but I kept coming back to them, to that particular idea. So there's obviously something there. So I decided to do a belief trial, which is really from now until the end of October. I'm just going to act as if this is true. I'm going to act as if my consciousness creates everything, and it's all a sort of projection and nothing else exists. What's happened since then is that I've really sort of set up. I can see things as sometimes I can see things, everything like that, and the world seems kind of miraculous place when it's like that. The other thing that's been going on for me is I've been reading a lot of Stuart Wilde, and he talks about infinite self, and he basically says underneath us all there is this. We're all infinite beings, and we can't make mistakes, and the ego just gets in the way. And the ego, it's not just being arrogant, but the ego is the thing that separates you from other people. So if somebody hurts your feelings, the ego gets upset about it. So it's not just pride, it's shame as well, and it's all these sort of negative things. Anything that kind of imprisons you mentally or emotionally, really. And that's been incredibly helpful for me. Yesterday I had, it felt quite bad, like a bad day with different things going on. And I looked back on it and I thought, no, the ego was really driving the bus today, wasn't it? So I suppose you could look at Scheinfeld's sort of busting loose philosophy. And if you looked at that, the infinite self versus the ego, in the light of Scheinfeld, what I would say is that the ego is all the things that's clouding us, and the ego is the thing that says, well, the outside world, the outside world really does exist, and I'm separate from it. And the infinite self would say, well, no, the outside world doesn't exist. I'm all there is. And then I had a conversation with somebody the other day who believes in the law of attraction, which of course Scheinfeld doesn't. He says that's all a construction. And I said to her, well, what do you think? What do you think of this whole idea of subjective reality? Do you think subjective reality exists? And she said to me, she did think it exists, but you can create your own reality. Now, I took that to mean everything is out there objectively, but you're seeing it in the way you're seeing it is basically controlled by your consciousness, and I suppose as an extension is controlled either by your ego or your infinite self. And so that, to me, I can kind of hook into that belief more easily than I can one where I've created everything. Although when yesterday, when I felt very challenged and there were times when I felt very miserable and stressed, the Scheinfeld philosophy seemed more of a help, actually. So I'm trying to kind of get my head around what I really believe about those things. But what I do know is that either Scheinfeld's right, or either the lady I spoke to, who believes we have an objective reality but how we see it is down to us, either she's right. And in all of this, the way that most people see the world, which is objective reality exists and we just react to it and we can't create any part of it, that seems to be the least plausible sort of explanation to me. And so I've come out of this, even though I don't know where I am and I'm still confused about the nature of reality. I think I've come out of this, even now I'm more powerful than I'd say 99.9% of everybody else out there, because I know that I do create many more things. And I think I'm going to make another video and I'm just going to list some of the things that I have manifested and all this. The last thing I want to say on this video really is that powerful thing came out from talking to this lady, which was, if everything's coming, either she says it comes from love or from fear, so I interpret that as coming from my infinite power or my ego, because the infinite power is what she would term as love and the ego comes from fear. What I've realised is that everything I do, everything I think, every decision I make, every action I take, it's either coming from my infinite power or it's coming from my ego, and there's like no in between. So at every moment I can make that decision. What am I going to do? Because the ego has had a hold for many, many years, in fact all my life, and now now my infinite power's coming out. The ego don't like it, and I think that's what yesterday was about, really. I can kind of see the ego for what it is. So last night, for example, I had to go out and get some milk. I was really tired. I was really resentful I had to go and get the milk. There was no rhyme or reason to it. But what happened, I was driving down the road and I thought, I want to go and get food and binge. If I go left, I'll go to the supermarket and binge. And if I go right, I'll go to the little corner shop where they don't really have many bingy foods. Not the ones I wanted at that moment, anyway. And I saw it. I saw my choice. Do I turn left or right? As a choice between turn left to go to the ego and turn right to go to the infinite self. And I really wanted to go down the left to the ego, but I went right to the infinite self. So that's good. So the ego was shouting, but I was actually listening to the infinite self. So I will leave it on there, and yeah, I'll come back and I'll tell you how I'm getting on. But it's a great adventure.